Easy long exposure photography. This is exactly what we're going to do, guys, today. We're going out onto the streets. I'm going to take some light trail photography, long exposure photography, and I'm going to give you a full breakdown, what I see, how I shoot, what are my settings like. We're going to break down the gear, what you need, the benefits and disadvantages of it. So without further saying, guys, let's jump onto the streets. Let's take some pictures. So as you can tell, guys, I made it down to my location, and I'm going to show you the location any second as well. And so far my settings are f18, 13 seconds at ISO 800. ISO 800 for the simple reason I would like to have a dynamic range of 400 for the post-processing, that I can basically boost the shadows in post a bit more. And basically, yeah, that's my location. We're in the middle of a city center right now. In the background you can see the Minster somewhere. We're using the street as the leading lines. We've got a bit of the wall as well, which leads into the image. And that's basically our first taken image. Here are a few tips when shooting long exposure using a tripod. If you use a camera with IBIS or a lens with in-lens stabilization for the lens, switch those features off. Switch the IBIS off, switch the lens stabilization off, because it can happen through the stabilization, through the vibration, your image won't be as sharp as it could be without. And you're using already a tripod, so you don't need any IBIS or lens stabilization. Switch it off, make sure your image will be sharp as possible. Also, second thing is, if you want to avoid any focus hunting, I do personally switch my camera into manual mode and focus, and then leave it in manual mode and just need to press the shutter button, because you avoid that the lens is hunting for your subject. It's nighttime and the lens is already struggling, or your focus system might be struggling. So if you switch it to manual, set your focus, and you don't need to worry about when hitting a shutter button that your image won't be sharp. However, you need to readjust as soon you move your position. And third tip is also set your camera to a 2-second, 5-second or 10-second timer. So this means basically when you hit the shutter button, the camera got time that the vibration stops before the image will be taken, and this will guarantee you a better, sharper image as well. So as you can see, guys, very simple and easy. Set your f-stop to a small f-stop. Every lens got a sweet spot. As an example, I know that the 18-55 from Fujifilm got the sweet spot between f8 to f13, and fantastic, it starts to rain, so better hurry up. Usually you say your ISO should be as low as possible to avoid noise within your image. However, sometimes you need to bump up the ISO to get the dynamic range, and also for post-processing later, I would like to have a dynamic range of 400 to boost up the shadows a bit. And then the shutter speed, you need to play around a bit, how far you want to underexpose the shadows, how far you want to overexpose the light trails. It's all a bit test and trial, figuring out what works for you. At the end of the day, you still do a bit of post-processing. However, guys, I'm going to take 2-3 more images before it actually starts to rain. We're back home, guys. Being great out again, doing some long exposure photography at nighttime. And it's been a while, and as I started out doing photography, I'd done a lot of them because I did like this type of photography at the time being. However, guys, as you've seen, it is very simple, easy, straightforward. There are no big secrets behind this image. All you need is a camera, a lens, and also, of course, a tripod. And it really doesn't matter what sort of lens or camera in this case you're gonna use. If it's Fuji, Canon, Sony, Nikon, full frame sensor, APS-C sensor, or even Micro Four Thirds sensor. It does not matter as long you got full manual control over your camera. This means you need to set your aperture, your ISO and your shutter speed, and you're good to go. Also, lens wise, it doesn't matter what sort of lens you use. You can use a kit lens, you can use a zoom lens, you can use a wide angle lens. It doesn't need to be a f1.2, f2.8 lens. You're gonna close down your aperture anyway to gather or to extend the shutter open time. So in this case, it does not matter what sort of lens you use. You can use your kit lens and you're good to go. Every lens got their sweet spot in an aperture, and you're gonna figure this out, and you're gonna find it out when you play around a bit, when the stars are almost looking perfect in a light. And then you know this is your sweet spot of your lens. Tripod related might be slightly different story. I definitely would recommend a bit more heavy, steady tripod. I'm having a little travel tripod, and those little light travel tripods causing some shake when you press a shutter button. Also a reason why I set my camera to a 2, 5 or 10-second timer to minimize the vibration before the image will be taken to get a sharper image. So that's all you need: camera, tripod and a lens, and you can have a basic camera and get great images out of it. You need to play around a bit what sort of settings you want to use, what sort of ISO you want to use. Usually, as mentioned already guys, you say lowest ISO, minimal noise, but sometimes you want to bump up ISO because of getting the higher dynamic range to boost the shadows a bit more in post. But you could have taken this image also on the ISO of 200 or even 100 with the aperture of f8, f13, and you extend your shutter speed to get enough light through the sensor to get those trails running through your image. And also, if you wanted to make your image way more interesting, you could take a selfie with the light trails in the back. However, it's a bit more tricky because you need to set your camera up. You need to make sure that your camera will take an image in a perfect moment. And it's always good to do this with two people, or if you have a photography buddy or anybody who is interested in the subject who could take this picture for you. Or if you are in a location where you're alone, then set your camera to a 10-second timer, set your focus to manual focus, frame yourself, wait until your 10-second timer is over to take your image, wait however long your timer or your shutter speed is set to, and then you should have a great selfie as well. However, as mentioned already guys, that's a bit more tricky, and it's always good to have a second person to do so. And yeah, I just wanted to throw this in here as well, that there are many options and ways how you can improve your trail photography to make images more interesting. And as in general, images are more interesting if there's a subject included in a frame. In this case, you, your friend, or whoever it might be. However, do it with two people. It's gonna be definitely easier than you do it alone. Just play around a bit, see how you get on. And with that said guys, I hope those little few tips and tricks today been helpful, and you have seen it is very simple and easy, and everyone can do it. You can do it as well. Let me know how you get on, if those tips been helpful. And with that said, like, comment and subscribe, and I'm gonna see you my friend in the next one. Cheers guys.